Tonight's scroll. What if the love you keep praying for has been trying to reach you, but your heart is still speaking in survival code? Tonight, the collective enters the desert path of Vual, where the camel carries endurance, the broken tongue carries truth, and the soul finally learns that being hard to understand is not the same as being deep. Some wounds are not silent. They are untranslated, wandering around the spirit with no subtitles, expecting everybody to decode pain like it came with instructions. Humanity naturally decided this was a relationship strategy. Adorable, exhausting, deeply unpaid labor. This scroll opens the hidden lesson of emotional language. Why do some people call silence peace when it is really fear holding its breath? Why do some hearts crave love, then treat kindness like a suspicious package? Why do we survive deserts so long that we start mistaking thirst for identity? Vual teaches the collective that endurance is sacred, but it is not the final destination. The camel can cross the dry land, but the soul was still meant to find water. Survival may have trained you to carry everything alone, but healing asks a different question. Can you let yourself be understood without turning vulnerability into a courtroom? Tonight, we learn that love cannot keep guessing forever. Peace needs language. Intimacy needs honesty. The future changes when the heart stops speaking in riddles and finally tells the truth without dressing it in sarcasm, distance, or dramatic window staring. The desert is wide. The camel is patient. The old wound is ready to be translated. And the collective is about to learn why the heart does not need to be perfect. It needs to stop making love. Decode what healing is finally brave enough to say. Some paths do not begin with a doorway. Some begin with sand. Dry seasons. Long roads, quiet strength. The kind of survival nobody clapped for because they were too busy asking why you looked tired while you were carrying half the village and 3 invisible bloodlines on your back. But tonight, Vual rises from the desert and reminds us, endurance brought you through the wilderness. Communication brings you into love. The camel knows how to survive distance. But the healed heart must learn how to arrive, because what good is reaching the oasis if you still ration joy like water might disappear for laughing too loudly? What good is being loved if your needs are locked behind silence? Your truth is buried under, "I'm fine," and your softness has to fill out paperwork just to be heard. Vual opens the scroll with one sacred correction. Your wound is not your native language. It is the accent survival gave you. Now the collective learns to translate. Fear becomes information. Silence becomes a sentence. Distance becomes a question. Longing becomes a doorway. And love, finally, is no longer asked to guess what the heart was too afraid to name. All.
Channeled by your architect musician, 36110, 27 palms of eyes. The golden whisperer, sea star, Devalan see all. Apply the news you can use, truth and accuracy. The real non-bedazzled jewels.
The 72 Keys of Earth. Scroll of Vual. The desert camel, the broken tongue, and the love that had to learn translation, beloved collective. One long turquoise braid falls from his hair like a river remembered by dry land. His eyes hold old kingdoms. His mouth forms words from a forgotten tongue. The speech is not perfect, but the meaning arrives. The 47th key turns. Vual has entered. And Vual does not ask whether you are loved. He asks, can love understand you when your pain speaks in a language even you barely learned? That is the first key, because some hearts are not silent. They are untranslated. Some people are not cold. They are speaking from a place where tenderness had to become coded. Some are not mysterious. They are simply emotionally under-subtitled, walking around expecting others to read a language written by survival, disappointment, family systems, and one childhood room where nobody explained anything properly. Tragic little language school. No curriculum. Plenty of homework. Vual speaks again, imperfect but clear. The heart does not heal by being guessed. It heals by learning how to speak. Beloved, that one came across the desert carrying water. Let it sit. The camel and the long road. The camel is the first symbol, and a camel is not glamorous in the shallow way. It is not here to twirl under a chandelier. It is built for distance, for heat, for dryness, for survival where the road gives nothing back. The camel knows how to carry what others would drop. It knows how to move through emptiness without mistaking the desert for defeat. That is the second key. Some of the collective has crossed emotional deserts nobody saw. You kept moving when affection was scarce. You kept creating when encouragement was missing. You kept showing up while carrying grief wrapped in responsibility. You learned to survive with little water, little softness, little rest, and somehow still had people asking why you were not more cheerful. Adorable. Nothing like being dehydrated in the spirit while somebody requests a better attitude. Vual looks at the camel and says, "Endurance is sacred, but do not mistake survival in the desert for your permanent address." That is the third key. Yes, you survived dry seasons. Yes, you learned resilience. Yes, you became strong enough to cross impossible ground. But beloved, be careful. Sometimes the same strength that carried you through scarcity will make you suspicious of abundance. You may reach the oasis and still ration joy like water will vanish if you laugh too loudly. You may meet kindness and inspect it like counterfeit currency. You may receive love and wonder what hidden invoice is attached. You may be offered rest and feel guilty, as if exhaustion personally sponsored your identity. The camel teaches endurance, but Vual teaches arrival. Do not worship the desert because you survived it. The goal was never to become legendary at thirst. The goal was to reach water and remember how to receive. The broken tongue. The old symbol says Vual speaks the Egyptian tongue, but not perfectly. Now that is a strange and beautiful detail, because imperfect language is still communication. Not everything sacred arrives fluently. Sometimes healing comes in broken sentences. Sometimes love comes awkwardly. Sometimes apology comes late, clumsy, and without the poetry your imagination had demanded. Sometimes your own truth first comes out messy. You try to say, "I am hurt," but it comes out as distance. You try to say, "I need reassurance," but it comes out as attitude. You try to say, "Please do not leave me confused," but it comes out as testing, silence, or a dramatic little performance starring I don't care, who once again is lying in costume. Vual listens, then says, "A wounded heart often speaks with an accent. Do not mock it. Translate it." That is the fourth key. Translation does not mean excusing harm. Let us not become foolish in soft robes. A bad pattern is still a bad pattern. Disrespect does not become sacred because it has a backstory. But translation helps you understand what is actually happening. When someone withdraws, are they punishing you, protecting themselves, or unable to name fear? When you snap, are you angry about this moment, or did this moment open a drawer from 10 years ago? When someone becomes defensive, are they hiding guilt, shame, or a wound that thinks correction is rejection? Wisdom listens beneath the words, but wisdom also watches behavior. Because some people love being misunderstood when accountability comes knocking. They suddenly become complicated, layered, wounded, nuanced, ancestral, cosmic, and unavailable for basic responsibility. Very fascinating, very cinematic. Still not an apology. Vual teaches translation with boundaries. Understand the language. Do not let confusion become citizenship. Past, present, and future. Vual carries knowledge of past, present, and future. Symbolically, this is not fortune-telling for entertainment, because the soul is not a carnival booth and your future deserves better than dramatic fog. Here, past, present, and future mean pattern. Past shows where the language began. Present shows how it is still being spoken. Future shows where it leads if nobody learns translation. The past says, "This is where you learned not to ask." The present says, "This is how you keep pretending you need nothing." The future says, if you keep refusing softness, you will call loneliness independence until your own spirit files a complaint. The past says, this is where betrayal taught you suspicion. The present says, this is why you inspect every good thing for hidden knives. The future says, if you cannot tell the difference between danger and unfamiliar peace, you will reject the oasis and praise yourself for surviving another desert. Beloved, the future is not always prophecy. Sometimes it is math with better lighting. Same pattern, same result, same camel, same dry road, same little surprise face when the destination has not changed. Vual says, the future changes when the language changes. That is the fifth key. You cannot keep speaking fear and expect trust to answer fluently. You cannot keep speaking avoidance and expect intimacy to feel invited. You cannot keep speaking self-betrayal and expect peace to understand the address. If you want a new future, learn a new tongue, the tongue of truth, the tongue of boundaries, the tongue of asking directly, the tongue of leaving when clarity has already given its answer, the tongue of staying only where love is practiced, not merely advertised. Love without possession. The old tradition ties Vual to love, so let us get careful and wise here. Love is not ownership. Love is not control. Love is not spiritual rope tossed around somebody's free will because your loneliness got theatrical. No, the collective is not here for manipulation wearing incense. Love, in this scroll, means harmony, attraction through wholeness, connection through honesty, receptivity through self-respect. Vual teaches the kind of love that can cross distance because it knows how to speak, listen, endure, and arrive without becoming a chain. That is the sixth key. Some people want love before they learn language. They want devotion but cannot speak need. They want loyalty but cannot tell the truth. They want closeness but punish anyone who gets near the wound. They want to be chosen but keep pretending nothing matters because vulnerability apparently feels like being asked to hand over national security secrets. Beloved, love cannot keep guessing forever. Even the most patient heart eventually needs a map. And if all you provide is riddles, silence, mixed signals, and one dramatic sigh near the window, do not be shocked when connection gets tired and sits down. Vual says, to be deeply loved, you must become willing to be deeply known. That does not mean exposed to everybody. Please do not hand your inner diary to strangers with nice cheekbones and suspiciously quick compliments. It means with the right people, in safe places, at honest pace, the mask must loosen. The heart must speak. The needs must be named. The boundary must be clear. The desire must stop pretending it is too dignified to exist. Friends and foes. Vual also brings friendship between friends and foes. Now that is a grown lesson, because reconciliation is not always reunion. Let us say that again before somebody starts texting a disaster from 3 summers ago. Reconciliation is not always reunion. Sometimes it is peace inside yourself. Sometimes it is the ending of inner war. Sometimes it is the ability to stop rehearsing arguments with people who are spiritually absent and probably eating chips somewhere, unaware they are still starring in your mental courtroom. The bailiff is exhausted. The judge wants lunch. Close the case. Friendship between foes can mean turning opposition into understanding. It can mean learning the lesson from conflict without needing the opponent to become family again. It can mean making peace with the part of you that hated your softness, making peace with the part of you that stayed too long, making peace with the part of you that left too late, making peace with the younger self that only knew survival language. That is the 7th key. Vual leads the collective to a desert table. On one side sits the wounded self. On the other sits the guarded self. The wounded self says, "You kept me hidden." The guarded self says, "I kept you alive." The wounded self says, "You made me lonely." The guarded self says, "I did not know who was safe." Vual places water between them. He says, inner peace begins when the parts of you stop treating each other like enemies. There it is. Some of the deepest reconciliation is internal, not calling yourself foolish, not hating the version of you that trusted, not shaming the version of you that stayed, not attacking the version of you that needed love so badly it tolerated crumbs and called them meals. Compassion is not denial. Compassion is accurate tenderness. It says, that happened, that hurt, that choice had consequences, and I am still worthy of becoming wiser without becoming cruel. The Order of Powers. The old text says Vual was of the Order of Powers. Symbolically, powers are guardianship, authority, structure, and the ability to regulate force. So the scroll asks, who has power over your emotional language? Who taught you how to speak love? Who taught you how to receive it? Who taught you what conflict means? Who taught you whether disagreement is danger or growth? Some of the collective inherited emotional languages they never chose. Homes where love meant control. Homes where silence meant punishment. Homes where loyalty meant self-erasure. Homes where apology meant, let us pretend nothing happened so nobody has to grow. Marvelous little disaster traditions, passed down like heirlooms nobody inspected. Vual says, take authority over the language you inherited. That is the 8th key. You may have learned silence. Now learn truth. You may have learned defense. Now learn discernment. You may have learned chasing. Now learn choosing. You may have learned abandonment. Now learn self-return. You may have learned to endure the desert. Now learn how to live near water. The core lesson. Here is what Vual teaches. Plainly, no camel certification required. Endurance brought you through the desert, but communication brings you into love. You cannot build a better future with an untranslated wound. You cannot expect peace to understand you while speaking only in fear. You cannot demand intimacy while hiding every tender sentence behind sarcasm, testing, or silence. Learn your own language. Translate your reactions. Ask what your patterns are trying to say. Then speak with courage. Not perfectly. Clearly. There is a difference. Perfect speech performs. Clear speech connects. Perfect speech wants applause. Clear speech wants truth. Vual does not ask you to become flawless. He asks you to stop making others guess what your healing refuses to name. So what did the collective learn? We learned that the camel is not just desert decor. It is endurance with hooves and a better travel plan than most people's emotional decisions. We learned that surviving the dry season is sacred, but making thirst your identity is where things start getting dusty. We learned that broken language can still carry truth, but somebody has to be humble enough to translate it. We learned that "I'm fine" has lied so many times it should need a permit. We learned that love cannot thrive on riddles, mixed signals, and dramatic window staring. We learned that reconciliation does not always mean reunion, so please stop trying to turn every closed chapter into a group project. We learned that inner peace begins when the guarded self and wounded self stop meeting only in court. And most importantly, we learned that the future changes when the language changes. Speak differently. Choose differently. Arrive differently. Legacy is not only what you survive, it is the emotional language you leave behind. Some families pass down silence. Some pass down fear. Some pass down anger as tradition. Some pass down "that is just how we are," as if dysfunction deserves a family crest. But you can pass down translation. You can become the one who says, "We name what hurts here. We apologize without making it theatrical. We ask directly. We do not turn silence into punishment. We do not make love guess until it collapses from exhaustion. We do not confuse endurance with destiny. We cross the desert, but we do not build a shrine to thirst." That is legacy. May those who come after you inherit words for their feelings. May they inherit boundaries that do not require cruelty. May they inherit love that listens before it argues. May they inherit courage that speaks before resentment starts construction. May they inherit the wisdom to recognize that some foes become teachers, some friends become lessons, and some parts of the self only needed water and a patient translator. Vual steps back into the desert. The camel waits, the stars sharpen, the horizon glows. The road does not become easy, but it becomes visible. Vual gives the final teaching. Speak the truth in the language of healing. Endure only what grows you. Leave the desert when water calls your name. Stand beneath the desert moon. Place one hand on the heart, one hand toward the road. Speak clearly. I honor the deserts I survived. I release the thirst I mistook for identity. I translate my wounds without letting them rule my voice. I speak my needs without shame. I receive love without treating peace like a trap. My past will be studied, not repeated. My present will be honest, not performed. My future will be chosen, not inherited. Let the camel carry wisdom. Let the broken tongue become clear. Let the wounded self and guarded self drink from the same water. Let love arrive where truth has finally learned to speak. Cross the desert, translate the wound, make peace within. Let the future hear a new language. Because love does not need you perfect. It needs you honest enough to stop making your heart speak in code. Ahll.
To every soul who made it to the end of this scroll, congratulations. You didn't just watch another video, you trained your attention, exercised your discernment, and invested in the one treasure no one can steal from you: wisdom. Graduation isn't receiving all the answers. It's finally learning how to ask better questions. If today's scroll sparked a thought, healed a wound, challenged an old belief, or simply reminded you that you're not walking this path alone, Then pass the lantern forward. Someone out there is still searching in the dark, and your share might be the light they were praying for. Join the collective by subscribing and turn on your notifications so you're there when the next scroll or codex is unveiled. Time has a funny habit of delivering the lesson right when it's needed. The algorithm is simply humanity's latest attempt to organize chaos. Sometimes it even succeeds. Until we gather again, keep your heart soft, your mind sharp, your spirit grounded, and your discernment polished. Question with courage, learn with humility, lead with compassion, walk in wisdom, walk in love. We'll meet you in the next scroll. All.
Until next time, your Sea Star Curacy, channeled by 3611027, the Beautiful Whisperer. Our Sea Star Devalan CO. Apply the news you can use.
You don't even have to say nothing. I already know. I know.